There's a lot of really great audio editing advice out there, and there's some not so great audio editing advice. I've followed a lot of that not so great advice. I've made a lot of mistakes, and today I'm going to show you 6 of those mistakes that you should definitely avoid when you're editing your audio. Luckily, most of it's pretty easy to avoid. Cool? Let's get started. Now, most of the mistakes that I'm going to show you today are mistakes that you can make no matter what program you're editing in. So if you don't use Davinci Resolve, stick around. You will probably get some helpful tips out of this video. But if you are working in Davinci Resolve, you are in luck because all of the solutions I am going to show you are specific to Davinci Resolve. Cool? Let's get started. The first mistake we're going to talk about is not setting your target loudness. This is like super important. Every platform that you deliver videos to want the videos delivered to that platform at a certain loudness, which means you need to measure the loudness when you're editing your audio. You can do that in the Fairlight page by keeping track of these meters up here. These keep track of your true peak and they keep track of your loudness. And if you don't have your target loudness set in Davinci Resolve, then these loudness meters are going to be of absolutely no use to you. They're going to give you information that means nothing unless you are really good at doing mental math. Luckily, this is really easy to fix. All we have to do is come down into our project settings, which you can find down here in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. There's this little gear that kind of looks like a flower. Does anybody else think that looks like a flower, or is it just me? Anyway, let's go ahead and click that. We'll come into the Fairlight tab in your project settings, and all you have to do is come down, go to audio metering, and most of this stuff is set by default, but the one thing you need to pay attention to is right here, target loudness level. Mine is set to -14 LUFS because that's what YouTube wants. Then all you got to do is hit save and you're good to go. Next up is one of the easiest mistakes to make, especially in Davinci Resolve, and that's putting your dialogue on a stereo track. Look, I'm not going to go through all of the technical reasons why this is just a bad idea, but just to keep it simple, if you have one microphone recording a source, it should only take a mono track. You don't need a stereo track for a mono source. But like I said, this is one of the easiest mistakes to make in Davinci Resolve. Let me show you how easily you can make it. I've got a brand new project here. I've got a couple of video clips that are dragged in. I don't even have a timeline made. And all I'm going to do is take this clip, I'm going to drag it into the timeline, I'm going to drop it in there, and it's going to create a timeline for me. And it's going to have a video track and an audio track. But by default, that audio track is going to be a stereo track. This is the default thing. If you just drag a clip into the timeline without creating a timeline first, it's going to create an audio track for your dialogue. And because of the way dialogue looks in the edit page, it's really easy to miss. So if you get through editing your whole video and you come over to the Fairlight page, this is when you're going to be able to catch it. You've got one audio track, but look at that. You've got a left and a right channel. If you're seeing that, you've got yourself a stereo track. Luckily, it's really easy to fix. All you have to do is right click on your track, and this works in the Fairlight page or the edit page. Just right click on that track, come down to change track type to, and click mono, and now you're in a mono track. So that's how to correct the mistake, but how do you actually prevent that mistake from being made in the first place? It's pretty easy. Let's go back to the edit page real quick. The way to avoid making this mistake in the first place is to create your timeline before you drag your media in. It's really easy. If we come into our media pool, we right click, we go to timelines, create new timeline, and then we can set things how we want. We can name our timeline, number of video tracks, number of audio tracks, and your audio track type. So you set that to mono. Let's say you're going to have 4 people talking, so you just want one person or one track per person. So that's 4 mono tracks, empty timeline, create, and there you go. We've got our new timeline. We've got our video track. We've got 4 mono tracks, and we're good to go. All right, next up, this one is pretty specific to Davinci Resolve. Actually, it's not going to sound like it at first, but it's wasting your EQ bands. I'm sure right now a lot of you are thinking, what could I possibly be talking about? Let me show you. If we come into the Fairlight page and I've got this audio sitting on a track, it's just a little piece of dialogue, and I want to go ahead and EQ this dialogue. The best way to do that is to use the EQ for that dialogue track. And if we open it up, you'll see we've only got, if we turn on our low cut and our high cut, in total, we've only got 6 bands to work with. Now, a lot of people are going to say, if you need more than 6 bands to EQ your dialogue, then you're doing something wrong. And to an extent, I do agree with that. You should always get things right at the source, right microphone for the right situation, that type of deal. But sometimes you need more than 6 bands. Unfortunately, with Davinci Resolve's built-in EQ, you don't have any way to add more bands. It kind of drives me nuts. But what drives me even more nuts, and this is a mistake that I have made in the past, and that's wasting your EQ bands. Look, you've got 6 bands to work with. Only 4 of them can actually be used to boost and lower things. So with those 4 bands, you need to not only shape your dialogue, you also need to diminish unwanted frequencies. So if you spend all 4 of those frequencies, all 4 of those bands getting rid of the frequencies, then you've done nothing to shape your audio. If you spend all 4 of them shaping your audio, then you haven't really done anything about those unwanted frequencies. So it's tough. Now, the best way to avoid making this mistake is to actually get familiar with all of the different frequency ranges and what they sound like. This is something that I actually learned in music production, and when I carried it over into video, it completely changed the game. And I'm going to do a whole video about what the different frequency ranges sound like and all that stuff, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that. But for now, let me just tell you the best way to get familiar with the different frequency ranges is simply to drop a multi-band compressor. There's one built into Davinci Resolve. It's a regular old Fairlight effects. Just take a multi-band compressor and drop it onto your audio track. And with the multi-band compressor built into Davinci Resolve, you can actually solo each one of the frequency ranges so you can figure out what they sound like. For example, if I wanted to know what the lows sounded like, that's 0 to 90 hertz, all I have to do is solo that, hit that little S, and I can play my dialogue.
Everyone, thanks Jake for asking me to be a part of this. I just want to say happy holidays to the greatest YouTube community that's out there, the Davinci Resolve community. You guys, I've had a blast getting to know you guys and seeing everything that you create.
Now, if you're watching this on your phone, you probably didn't hear anything there. But if you're listening through headphones or on a really, really good pair of studio monitors, then you probably heard a little bit of the was the very, very low and just a lot of the boominess. So that's what I would suggest. I would suggest going through with a multi-band compressor, soloing each of the frequency ranges, figure out what lives where, and then that way, once you get used to that, you can come into your EQ. We can deselect that multi-band compressor, we can come into our EQ, and now we can listen. And I can't wait to see what you guys make next. So don't forget to go out and make stuff, and we can say, okay, well, yeah, we definitely could use a low cut. There's a little bit of that boominess in there, so we're gonna bring that up a little bit. With all that being said, happy Hanukkah. There's a little bit of mud, so we can drop our, 250 to 500 a little bit. Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. And you get the idea. By figuring out what frequency ranges sound like, you can know what you need to cut and what you need to boost. And that way you can diminish unwanted frequencies while at the same time shaping your dialogue. All right, next up, let's talk about noise reduction, or as some people like to call it, noise removal. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I have made, that I've seen other people make, and that's removing noises that should be there. And it's really hard to explain what I mean. So I'm gonna show you a little clip, and you'll hear a change in the audio a little past the halfway point, and you'll see what I mean. So let's go ahead and listen to this audio. Okay, so I'm out here in my backyard. I'm on a little vlogging camera, but if you listen, you'll hear things in the background. You probably just heard the trash truck's hydraulic brakes. You probably hear some bugs going on in the background. Those are, I don't know what those are, but you could probably hear them. You hear maybe a slight breeze. You just hear a lot of natural outdoor noises. And if we got rid of that, it would probably sound really unnatural and really bad. And you might be hearing some weird warbly chirping in the higher frequencies. And that's just not good. You see what I mean? That's just really, really not good. It sounds so unnatural. You need to have some of the background noise. You need to be able to place the dialogue in the environment. If it sounds completely separate from the environment, it's going to take people out of the experience of the video. It's just not going to sound good. Now, the really easy way, if you are in Davinci Resolve Studio, I think it's only in Studio right now, you have the voice isolation feature here. If you just open up the settings for that, just don't have this at max. If we come back, we'll go ahead and we'll dial it back to where, okay, maybe it's not as distracting, but it's still there. Let's go ahead and loop that. Rid of that, it would probably sound really unnatural and really bad. And you might be hearing some weird warbly chirping in the higher frequencies. And that's just not good. Rid of that, it would going on in the background. Those are, I don't know what those are, but you could probably hear them. You hear maybe a slight breeze. You just hear a lot of natural outdoor noises. And if we got rid of that, it would probably sound really unnatural and really bad. And you might be hearing some weird warbly chirping in the higher frequencies. And that's just not good. Rid of that outdoor noises. And if we got rid of that, it would probably sound really unnatural. So right there, we just needed a little bit of that voice isolation to bring down some of those distracting noises, but still have the dialogue placed in the environment. Remember, this is not noise removal. Quit saying noise removal. It is noise reduction. Now, sometimes noise removal is necessary. Sometimes things happen on set or while you're recording a video that you didn't mean to have happen, and so you gotta crank that voice isolation all the way up to get rid of all of the background noise. And that's fine if that's the case, but if you do that, you need to use sound design to counteract that. You still need to have the dialogue fit the scene, so you need Foley, room tone, outdoor sounds, birds chirping, whatever it is. You need something to fill in that space. And the best place to get Foley and sound effects and music and whatever else you need in order to accomplish that goal is today's sponsor, Artlist. Now, if you're new to this channel and you've never heard me talk about Artlist before, let me give you the quick rundown. Artlist is a huge library of stock elements that you can use to complete your video projects. They've got stock footage and stock elements and music and sound effects and room tone and Foley and templates and plugins. And if you subscribe to Artlist Max, you get access to an NLE. It's literally a one-stop shop and everything's super easy to find. They've got AI-powered search filters and you can download raw and log versions of the footage. You can download uncompressed WAV files for their audio. It's just really, really high quality stuff that you can use wherever, whenever you want. It's amazing. I've been using them for years. The music and the sound effects that you hear in my little logo intro thing at the beginning of this video, that's all from Artlist. If you listen to my podcast and you hear the sound effects I use in there and the room tone that I use underneath all the people talking, that's all from Artlist. It's not just high quality stuff, it's practical, usable stuff. And they've got plans to fit every budget. So I'll have them linked below if you want to check them out. If you click that link and you sign up using that link, you'll get 2 free months on top of an annual subscription and you'll be helping out this channel. So it's a total win-win situation. So click the link below, check out Artlist today. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring this video and for continuing to support creators like me. And now let's get into our next mistake that people make, which is guess and check dynamics. It's a term that I coined. At least I think I coined it. Guess and check dynamics is a pretty simple concept. It's basically using the dynamics feature in Davinci Resolve or whatever software you're in without actually understanding what the dynamics features do. When we're talking about dynamics, we're talking about noise gate, we're talking about compressor, and we're talking about limiters. Now, in Davinci Resolve, they can all be found by double-clicking in the dynamics box on your track. You see, we've got expander and gate, we've got compressor, we've got limiter. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be looking for, like, what are the best settings for each one? But the truth is, every microphone is different. Every person talking is different. And there is no one-size-fits-all setting for these things. The best thing to do is to learn what each of the dials do and start playing around with them and figuring out what sounds best for the video that you are making. For now, here's the basic rundown. Expander and gate, that's kind of your dynamics version of noise reduction. If you've got little noises in between people talking and you need to silence them, like things like, I don't know, maybe a chair squeaking or something like that, that's what you use the expander and the gate for. The compressor is going to kind of shrink your dynamic range a little bit. It's going to squash your louder parts of your video so they get closer to the quieter parts of your video so you don't have a lot of really big dynamic shifts. I'm stuck like this. And then the limiters is kind of like the backup compressor a little bit. At least this limiter here in the dynamics, you've got your compressor to kind of squash that dynamic range so it's not shooting all over the place, but then that limiter's going to come in for the things that kind of escape the compressor, and it's going to bring them down a little bit. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Either way, stick around for the deep dive into dynamics. We'll go into all of that. All right, next one is a big one that took me forever to figure out. It's another kind of rule that's came over from the music production side, which is not carving out space for your dialogue. You hear this a lot in the music world, carving out space for your vocals. It's basically getting rid of the frequencies that are getting in the way and are distracting people from the dialogue. And like before, this is just a big technical conversation that we can have at another time. But for now, just know this. If you have ever put out a video and people have complained that the music is too loud or too distracting or too whatever, it's probably not the volume. It is probably the EQ. Let me show you what I mean. I've got this piece of dialogue. Now, it's going to sound weird listening to it because this is actually like a little holiday thing that I put together for my friend Jake Whip. So I'm talking about like happy holidays and all this stuff. It's going to sound weird. Just bear with me. But I've got the dialogue up here. I've EQ'd it and compressed it and kind of raised the levels a little bit. And I put a piece of music underneath it. And I put it at minus 24 dB, which should be quiet enough. It should absolutely be quiet enough. But when I play it, you're going to hear it's going to be very, very distracting. And then I've got this EQ right here, which has a cut at the 1K hertz frequency. I got down at minus 10 with a Q factor of 1.1. And you're going to see when I activate this EQ on the music, it's going to be a game changer. So we're going to listen to this little clip, and I'm going to turn the EQ on and off so you can hear the difference. We're going to start with it off. Hey everyone, thanks Jake for asking me to be a part of this. I just want to say happy holidays to the greatest YouTube community that's out there, the Davinci Resolve community. You guys, I've had a blast getting to know you guys and seeing everything that you create, and I can't wait to see what you guys make next. So don't forget to go out and make stuff. And with all that being said, happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, and of course, Merry Christmas. There you go. You see how big of a difference that EQ made? It cut a lot of the frequencies where dialogue would normally shine through. And so when you EQ it like that, when you put that 1K cut on there, it's going to allow the dialogue to come through a little bit, and it's going to stand out, and that music is not going to be as distracting, and you'll get a lot less angry comments on your videos. Cool. Now, just like with the Dynamics processor, there is no one size fits all settings for really any tool. It all depends on the microphones that were used. It depends on the voices of the people speaking, the positions of the microphones. It depends on all this stuff. That is what's going to determine what settings will work best to edit your audio. So take the time, familiarize yourself with all the tools, then go watch this video right here. And until next time, don't forget to go out and make stuff. Thanks for watching.